Welcome back, everyone, to another thrilling episode of Secret Solver, where we unravel mysteries, uncover hidden secrets, and embark on thrilling adventures. In this video, we are going to discuss the top 8 most terrifying crime cases. Even the most passionate true crime enthusiast would feel uneasy after looking at the graphic details of certain cases. It's difficult to comprehend how these merciless killers carried out their horrific acts when we consider the pain of the victims. These horrifying murders' gory details are worse than anything in a horror movie. 1. The Toolbox Killers. Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris were two sadistic serial killers who used the most heinous methods to murder 5 females. The victims, who ranged in age from 13 to 18, were abducted on Southern California motorways over a 5-month period in 1979. They were subjected to the worst form of physical pain by the murderers, who used an ice pick, screwdriver, vice grips, and pliers. They recorded the screams of their victims as well. The former deputy district attorney for Los Angeles County who prosecuted the murderers claimed that the evidence tormented him for years after the trial. "I would hear the girls screaming, and I was running to get to them. Too late." The Toolbox Killers had been waiting for execution for many years. Behind jail, Bittaker remarked, "I happen to have got lucky and got one of the most liberal judges. They don't seem to be in any hurry. I'm not either, since I don't have much coming. It wasn't exactly a fair trial, but I deserve to be here, so I can't complain." 2. The Hi-Fi Murders. The Hi-Fi murders in 1974 still shock today. Dale Selby, William Andrews, and Keith Roberts visited the Ogden Hi-Fi shop soon before it closed. They then held store workers 20-year-old Stanley Walker and 18-year-old Michelle Ansley hostage in the basement before robbing the store. Later, 16-year-old Byron Naisbitt entered the store as he was running errands and was also taken hostage. When Carol Peterson Naisbitt, the mother of Brian, and Orrin Walker, the father of Stanley, came at the shop to seek for their kids, both of them met the same end. The captives were forced to swallow a caustic chemical, which caused their lips, tongues, and throats to burn, and their skin to peel off. What followed next is unthinkable. 3 of the captives were shot dead during the hours of torture, which also included the use of a ballpoint pen as a weapon. Orrin Walker and Byron Naisbitt, the 2 survivors, both suffered severe fatal injuries. All of the sick murderers were put to death by lethal injection, with the exception of Keith Roberts, who was charged with aggravated robbery and given a life sentence. 3. Serial killer Albert Fish. In the state of New York, serial killer Albert Fish preyed on young children. The killer and cruel child tormentor boasted that he had children in every state. He was killed in 1936 for the murders of 4-year-old Billy Gaffney, 10-year-old Grace Budd, and 9-year-old Frances McDonald. Only those with a strong stomach should read the specifics of the killings, because Fish also described in detail how he cannibalized the corpses. To enhance her pain, Fish also sent a perverse letter to Grace Budd's mother. "I grabbed her and she said she would tell her mama. First I stripped her naked, how she did kick bite and scratch. I choked her to death, then cut her in small pieces so I could take my meat to my rooms, cook and eat it. How sweet and tender her little ass was roasted in the oven. It took me 9 days to eat her entire body." He is regarded as one of history's most heinous serial killers. 4. Toy Box Killer. After the horrifying discovery of his cruel torture facility in 1999, David Ray Parker earned the dreaded title Toy Box Killer. Up to 60 victims are thought to have been kidnapped, tortured, and killed by him in New Mexico. Since many of the victims were mutilated and discarded in secret places, many of them were never found. After 3 days of unbearable suffering, he was able to save the life of his final intended victim. When police arrived on the scene of the crime, they found a soundproof truck trailer filled with torture devices, including a gynecology table with shackles and a variety of surgical tools. Parker recorded the torture of his victims as well. He displayed no remorse for his actions and said, "Making these tapes was a source of entertainment for me." Parker passed away from a heart attack in 2002 before starting to serve his 223 years in jail. Therefore, his victims received no justice. 5. Josef Mengele Experiments. Twisted Nazi Dr. Josef Mengele is remembered for his heinous medical experiments during World War II, most of which entailed torturing identical twins. Mengele chose children for his lethal experiments at Auschwitz in 1943. a twin and Mengele survivor, Renate Gutmann. She relates a chilling story. "I was separated from my brother and mother and taken to a hospital where I was measured and x-rayed. Blood was taken from my neck. Once I was strapped to a table and cut with a knife. I got injections that made me throw up and have diarrhea. While ill in the hospital after an injection, guards came in to take the sick to be killed." Although the exact number of victims is unknown, witnesses claim that Mengele murdered up to 14 twins in a single night by injecting chloroform into their hearts. He escaped prosecution after the war by fleeing to South America, where he passed away from a stroke at the age of 67 in 1979. 6. Kermit Gosnell's abortions. Kermit Gosnell, a deranged serial abortionist, carried out late-term abortions in his filthy, dangerous clinics at the Women's Medical Society in West Philadelphia. The medical clinic had been under his ownership since 1979, and there had long been grievances against his practice. Gosnell was detained in 2011 on suspicion of killing 7 children who had initially survived his original abortion attempts, but eventually died at the hands of his heinous crimes. Gosnell was neither a licensed obstetrician or gynecologist, according to evidence presented to a grand jury, despite billing up to $3,000 for each late-term abortion. When his employees testified against him, they described how they saw babies wiggle or scream after he conducted the abortion, and how he ultimately terminated their lives in horrific ways. Gosnell was found guilty on 3 charges of first-degree murder, including 1 count of murdering an adult patient. He was also found guilty on 1 count of involuntary manslaughter, 21 felony counts of performing unlawful late-term abortions, and 211 instances of breaking the 24-hour informed consent legislation. He received a life sentence without the chance of release. 7. Richard Speck, slaughter. The state of Chicago changed forever when Richard Speck invaded South Chicago Community Hospital and slowly tortured and killed 8 nurses. On July 14, 1966, in the early morning hours, Speck led the nurses like lambs to the slaughter during a 5-hour assault. When the massacre was ended, Speck discovered that one of his hostages had hidden under a bunk bed, but he had been preoccupied with his own murderous rampage. She then sprang out of a window and took off running. The victim only remembered Speck from his tattoo, which said, "Born to Raise Hell." A doctor was able to identify the tattoo from press accounts when the cold-blooded killer showed up at County Cook Hospital 2 days later after making an unsuccessful suicide attempt. The assistant Cook County District Attorney said of the sadistic attacks, "It really was the first random mass murder of the 20th century. It really was the end of an age of innocence. It changed everything. We all became much more conscious of our security." 8 nurses could be slaughtered in their beds for no reason by a stranger. The murder of Sylvia Likens. More than 50 years later, Indiana continues to be haunted by the terrible and cruel murder of Sylvia Likens. Police discovered the body of 16-year-old Likens, who had suffered more than 150 burns and slashes, lying on a dirty mattress in 1965. The Likens murder appears to be quite similar to a lot of other horrible murders. It was a Cinderella story without the happy ending. A teenage girl left under the care of a strict authoritarian whose idea of discipline is physical abuse that escalates until the abuse victim dies. The little girl was first reduced to nothing more than skin and bone, making it obvious that she had starved to death. She had suffered from hunger and a brain hemorrhage. It was later discovered. Gertrude Banaszewski, a mother of 7, was detained and accused with first-degree murder. For the care of Likens and their other daughter Jenny, Likens' parents had paid Banaszewski $20 each week. Banaszewski, however, let her own kids beat Likens and make her eat feces instead. Attorney Natty Bumpo said, "A lot of people have compared this to Lord of the Flies, but that was just a bunch of uncontrolled children. In this case, they had an adult supervising what they were doing. It wasn't children going wild, it was children doing what they were told." And there you have it, top 8 most horrifying crime cases in the history. Most of them have yet to be resolved. People have been astonished by these murder mysteries from case to case, and in the majority of them, they have been pondering and developing ideas based on their suspicion. For the latest information on all of our upcoming content, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and use the notification button. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.